So, Alex, how did you go from being afraid of heights as a kid to being a freaking pilot?
I love that question. Great way to start off.
When I think about flying a small plane, I can't think of anything more terrifying.
Yeah, really.
I mean, or a big one for that matter, but especially the small ones because you just feel so much more vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people don't typically like small planes. I was pretty afraid of heights as a kid. You know, wouldn't go on balconies or would freak out over on bridges and amusement park rides. And my parents were onto this, and they saw that this fear was kind of holding me back. So they intelligently set up a flying lesson for me without me knowing. And one day my dad brought me to the airport and, you know, introduced me to this guy, Bill Houston. And Bill Houston started giving me a tour of the airport. And he's like, here, I'll show you the hangar. Cool. I'll show you this airplane. Hey, this is cool. And he's like, here, we'll go taxi over there. So we taxi. And then all of a sudden we're taxiing the plane. I hear, okay, you're, you know, Whiskey November X-ray, you're clear for takeoff. And I'm like, holy shit, this is happening, you know? So I'm in that fear state. I'm super anxious. I'm probably starting to break a sweat at that point. And before you know it, we're taking off. And as we're taking off, he says to me, okay, Alex, you have control. And he lets go of, you know, basically lets go of the yoke. And I had to choose in that moment to take control. And I did. And so now I'm flying the plane. And it was literally like in that moment that the fear became an illusion. And I realized it in real time. And I was like, holy shit, I'm not afraid of flying. This is wild. And I'm going up higher and higher, looking over my hometown. I see my neighborhood, my school, and all this kind of stuff. And it was surreal. At that point, it was a peak experience of my life. And it was literally got to dissolve fear in real time. And from there, I became obsessed with flying and pushing the limits.
Kind of like an exposure therapy type deal.
Heck yeah.
How old were you?
I was 17 on that first flying lesson. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you went on to do that professionally.
Yeah. I basically showed up at the airport the next day and the day after that and the day after that. And I was just obsessed. I couldn't wait to get back in the airplane. I became a private pilot at 18. I became a commercially licensed pilot at 20. I went on to teach the military at 24 years old, you know, teaching, you know, people in the military. It was super cool. It was like this whole Top Gun experience. And I really just had that, you know, feeling or knowing that fear was fake. It was an illusion that I was believing in. And once I stopped believing in that or agreeing to that, everything changed. And I really just full sent it through my 20s in that aviation career and into entrepreneurship. But that was the catalyst for sure.
That's epic. Would you today go on that glass platform on the Grand Canyon?
Yeah.
That goes out over the canyon? You would?
Yeah.
I don't think of myself as someone who's terribly afraid of heights, but when it comes to shit like that, there's no way I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would wet myself.
It's one of those innate fears, and it, you know, I'll still sense that, like, wow, death is here. It's very close in those moments, but there's something about that. You know, I've gotten a new relationship with death over the years, and heights played a factor in that for sure. All
right. One thing I ask every pilot I get the opportunity is this, and I've learned you have to word it a certain way, especially with commercial pilots, like the OGs, you know, guys have been flying 50 years. So I've gotten the wrong answer many times, but what I want to know is this. You know, I had this guy Flat Earth Dave on the show.
You're going in this direction. I love it.
His case was very compelling. I mean, there were just things I couldn't deny or couldn't explain away. Just basic laws of physics, like being able to see too far, for example, like on a body of water.
Right.
But one of the arguments for the shape of the Earth that's always been challenging for me to explain away is that when a plane is flying across a long distance, and then, you know, understand I'm not a master of physics, so I could be missing something huge here. But if a plane is flying, you know, a few hundred miles, a couple thousand miles, right? If they were going over a ball, it seems to me that to maintain the same altitude, they would need to dip the nose down a couple degrees so that they didn't end up going up, right? If you're going over a ball, you have to hug the ball,
right,
which means you'd have to dip the nose of the plane down a little bit constantly so you didn't end up going up in altitude as you went over the curve of the ball.
Right.
So my question is this: are there any adjustments made when you're flying that account for the elevation and altitude you would have if you were going over a ball?
No, definitely not. You never have to adjust on a downward. And that makes like total common sense when you put it that way with a globe. It makes me think like you'd be landing upside down in Australia. You know, by the time you got to Australia, like how would that look when you're flying all the way around as the plane upside down? Like it doesn't really make sense. And that was, you know, this may throw people off right off the get-go, but I'm not saying I know what shape the earth is. I don't know what shape it is. All I know is someone that spent thousands of hours in the sky, you know, very high altitudes, much higher than even commercial passenger planes. You know, I flew private jets for a while. They go much higher. They go much faster than commercial planes. I've never seen a curve. And the one that always came up for me, Luke, is like if it was the earth is supposed to be spinning at 1,000 miles an hour or something like that. So imagine you're flying and then the ground beneath you is also moving, like landing on a moving target. As a pilot, for me, would be, I don't even know how that could be done. You know, it blows my mind. So those are kind of questions that...
Right, that's true. And say if you were flying a plane and you were going the same direction as the spin or the supposed spin, when you're going that direction, you would get there much faster than if you were going against it, right?
Yeah.
Or that's the other way around.
The other way around.
Yeah. So if you were going against the spin, then you would get there in like half the time.
Yeah.
Or more.
Yeah, against the spin. Let's say you're going from LA to New York or something and you're going against the spin. Well, it seems like you would get there a lot quicker because the earth is moving towards you.
Right.
That doesn't happen. You know, there's so many weird things like that. I would encourage people, this is the one that I like to get a kick on. And I don't know the answer. All I know is something is very weird. But like, if you look at the quantities of jet fuel that they say goes into a commercial airliner, like look up the numbers. What is the jet fuel required to fly from here to there? And it's like these huge amounts of jet fuel, like swimming pool size numbers, like Olympic swimming pool size numbers. And then go look at the wing of a commercial plane the next time you're on it and you're sitting there. Like the wing is like this thin.
Yeah.
And like an Olympic size swimming pool is like, 6-7 feet deep at least. It doesn't add up. There's something so fishy about that. And I haven't figured out what that is all about, but definitely some weird things, being a pilot and getting into.
That's interesting. Yeah. Thinking about the amount of available square footage on a commercial airplane versus the square footage it would take to hold as much fuel as they supposedly need to go from point A to point B.
Yeah.
It does. I've looked at that just at a glance, and it just on its face, it doesn't add up.
Yeah.
But then, like all of these kind of conspiracies, why would they lie about that? I mean, I can see why they would lie about the nature of our realm. That is
Sure.
a deep rabbit hole, right? But because there's a lot of mind control that becomes available when you get people to have a misconception or a total denial of like where they are in space and time and their purpose of being there and who put them there and all that.
Yeah.
But like with commercial flight, is it so they can jack up the air fare, because they're like, oh, it costs more fuel to go to Indonesia, therefore it's $5,000 instead of 500.
Yeah. I think it's some sort of money laundering thing and it's all
Right.
write-offs, so it's like,
Right.
well, if we need X amount of gallons of fuel and that's hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's a write-off because it's a company expense.
Oh, right.
Something along those lines. I just,
Yeah.
once you start looking at the numbers, and I encourage anybody to just Google it, it gets pretty weird.
Another thing about the spin that trips me out is like hot air balloons and helicopters that can fly up to altitude but remain stationary, and then they can just land in the same exact spot when they come down.
Yeah.
it seems like when they go up, if it's spinning 1,000 miles an hour, when they come straight down, they would be in a different place.
Right.
But they're not. They're right where they were.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
I think that's one of the easiest ones to break.
I've heard
it down.
rebuttals to that says something like, which doesn't make sense, that, well, they're spinning in the whole atmosphere, just like if you have like, a bumblebee or housefly inside your car.
Yeah.
Right. Then it's still going to be wherever you end up kind of thing. But that still doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. They throw words around like atmosphere and stuff to kind of just make it make sense, to like harmonize it. But if that was the case, like how would all the stars be in the same spot, and all these kind of things? The Earth is supposed to be moving, 1,000 miles an hour while it's spinning through the galaxy at another thousands of miles an hour. But meanwhile, when we look up at night, like the stars are in the same spot all the time.
And they've been in the same spot for all of recorded history. That is kind of a problem.
Yeah.
All right. I digress. That wasn't even, it's not even close to the topic of our conversation here today. But like I said, when I meet pilots, I have to ask them that because I want to know the truth.
Yeah.
I don't even care what the truth is. I'm not attached to any outcome. I feel like we've been lied to from the second we were born about so many things. Some of them don't matter and some of them really do. I think where we are and what this place is that we live in or live on is pretty important.
Yeah. It's a big deal.
To have a sense of, to have a sense of purpose and to know that your life means something and that something put you here and created all of this.
Yeah.
And that's pretty core. Some of the other, does it really matter to me whether there's jet fuel in the, in the wings of planes? Not really. But it's just like every little lie I think that we can sort of dissect improves our capacity for critical thinking and allows us to take responsibility for the beliefs that we hold and not just blindly, kind of go along with beliefs that have been implanted into our head by a system that is antithetical to our well-being.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, so before you got into your company Eons, that we're going to be talking about that, of course, you were in the cannabis business.
Yeah.
And I've interviewed a couple people, in the CBD space and some people that were cultivators and things like that. And I always find those stories interesting because there's such a, Wild West kind of through those periods of like illegality and then regulation. There's always some crazy shit. Someone is like, oh, I made $5 billion and lost it a week later. There's always something to the effect of just a really kind of an interesting industry and business model. So give us like a truncated version of your experience in that space.
Yeah, it was a fun ride. It was a massive learning experience. And to your point, like it had never been done. Cannabis was on prohibition for 100 years almost by the time that it was legalized in Canada. So I was a pilot. I was a private jet pilot and I was flying for a wealthy gentleman and he had a couple successful exits, successful entrepreneur, really sharp guy, really smart guy. And I could tell that he was bored. We were flying around. My job basically consisted of flying him around to different steakhouses that were opening up around the States and looking at new aircraft to fly around in. And I was like, man, you should really get back into entrepreneurship. Like, is this how you're going to spend your 40s is, just flying around to look at helicopters and planes and stuff? And he's like, well, if I did something, what would I do? I've already got my exits and stuff. And I'm like, if it was me, I would get into cannabis. And he's like, cannabis? It's illegal. What are you talking about? And I go, yes, it's illegal, but it's going to become legal. And there's a giant wave to ride when it becomes legal. And it's a healthier alternative to alcohol. And it can actually help a lot of people in a medicinal sense. My mom got through her breast cancer using cannabis oil. So I had a warm place for cannabis in my heart. And I had I was a big cannabis user up until that point, off and on. So I had a good relationship with the plant. And I also saw that there was a gigantic opportunity to be had. And I was super excited by that. I was like, this is a once in a lifetime thing. Cannabis has always been illegal. It's going to become legal. So yeah, I basically convinced him. We joined forces and formed a company. We raised $60 million for that company and built out the most kick-ass, state-of-the-art, indoor indoor cannabis growing facility in North America at that time.
Really?
Yeah. It was,
oh, wow.
It was 650,000 square feet was the first,
Oh my God.
was the first facility.
That's like as big as this town.
Yeah. It's like 10 Walmarts put together.
That's crazy.
It was a dream come true. And it was really a testament to like having,
what was your power bill like for that facility?
Well, where it was in Quebec was very strategically placed because in Quebec, Canada has the cheapest hydroelectricity in North America. So that was a whole thing. I actually don't remember what the hydro bill was by the time it was fully operational. And a lot of it, I think, was a write-off as well. But yeah, it was a dream come true. It was really seeing like something I had from inception, taking it to full fruition. You know, by the time I left that company, it had 500 employees, many successful brands that I helped develop, took it public. And by the time I left, I had, I think, 1.6 million square feet of indoor grow space. It was truly gigantic and a dream come true for a young, you know, cannabis lover at that time.
Were you still smoking weed while you were running and building the business?
I was up until 2020. And then I started experimenting with mushrooms. You know, I started for gut health. I had some brain fog and fatigue and anxiety. And
probably brain fog from smoking that cannabis, son.
yeah, for real. And straight up. And it was a shareholder friend of mine that was a holistic doctor that put me on to functional mushrooms for gut health. And that's what gave me the clarity I needed to see again that I was using cannabis as a crutch, as a coping mechanism, to escape and not feel feelings that I was avoiding probably my whole life. And so once I got that clarity from the mushrooms, I was elevated, and that inspired me to dive deeper into mushrooms, you know, psychedelics and microdosing and large journeys and all this kind of stuff. And that's when I really saw the power of mushrooms, and I stopped smoking cannabis. So I felt I couldn't really be an ambassador for that plant anymore. And it felt weird to be part of a cannabis company that I was like, yeah, this is more of a coping mechanism and people are just using this to escape. And I kind of saw through that whole paradigm, I saw how the plant was being mistreated and genetically modified, and the spirit of that plant is distorted. And I saw that in ayahuasca as well. So it just didn't feel aligned anymore. So I was like, yeah, I want to do something that feels aligned. And mushrooms were that full-on alignment.
Check this out. With everything that's going on with our food, air, and water, detoxing is no longer optional. And if you really want vitality, it's an absolute must. One of the best ways to remove toxins from the body is through sweating. But did you know that not all sweat is created equal? When you hop into an infrared sauna, the light is absorbed deeply by the body, causing your cells to vibrate. And that raises core temperature and enhances natural metabolic processes, pulling out nasty toxins like aluminum, cadmium, and even mercury. The sauna I use on the reg is my Amplify Full Spectrum Sauna from Sunlighten. Sunlighten's patented and science-backed technology provides the most effective, high-quality, near, mid, and far infrared available. They actually have 4 different sauna collections, each of which features different combinations of light and varying aesthetics to fit both your needs and your decor. And with any Sunlighten sauna, you can rest assured that you're going to sweat fast, sweat deep, and support your detox. And by the way, you can learn what makes Sunlighten my top pick on the Lifestylist podcast, episode 477. So make sure to check that out if you want the deep dive. And then when you're ready to treat yourself to the world's best infrared sauna, visit get.sunlighten.com/LukeStorey and use the code LukeStorey to save up to $600. You can also find that link in the show notes on your podcast app. And obviously, it would make 0 sense to detox while exposing yourself to high levels of EMF. And that's why Sunlighten designed their heating panels to produce almost none, so you can relax and detox safely. Again, that link is get.sunlighten.com/LukeStorey, and the code is LukeStorey. Talk to me about how you saw the plant being mistreated and distorted for people that don't have that kind of relationship with, non-sentient, or what we assume to be non-sentient beings.
Yeah.
This is kind of stuff Allison talks about all the time. We'll be out and she's like, oh, that tree told me this and that. And when I first met her, I was like, oh, that's cute. And then I have come to learn, whoa, no, she's really hearing something. So my growth in this area has definitely, expanded over the past few years. But there would have been a time when you said like, oh, this plant's being mistreated or, because it's being hybridized and things like that. It doesn't like that, or, that kind of talk where it's like the plant has consciousness would have seemed weird to me, more so than now, where I kind of get it after working on my own relationship. But what was that insight, for people out there that perhaps don't use any real discernment when they're, if they choose to use cannabis, they might just think it's all the same, right? I interviewed this guy, Ryan Sprague.
He's great.
And he went into a lot of really interesting stuff about cultivation and, the different strains that you use and how you treat the plants and, growing them in a more natural way and all this kind of stuff. But I'm curious what your vision was when you're drinking ayahuasca and going like, oh, wait, this ain't right.
Yeah, Ryan Sprague is great. He's one of those, rare, true ambassadors of the plant, and I have a lot of respect for him. And, in my experience in the cannabis space, there's not many Ryan Spragues out there. He's truly one of a kind. And I think he would agree with this. But yeah, the plant is being very mistreated overall. And like you said, everything that's alive, everything that has consciousness, in all the kingdoms that the creator put on this earth, the plant kingdom, the mushroom kingdom, the mineral kingdom, the animal kingdom, human kingdom, we're all living in consciousness, and that consciousness is, connected to spirit. And cannabis plant is no different. There's a cannabis plant spirit, it's a feminine spirit, and the indigenous know this, the tribes know this as well. And yeah, the plant is being, it's not the same spirit, or it's not the same spirit. It's not the same way that it was grown back when our parents were, picking weed out of the bush and lighting up a joint. It's been genetically modified. It's been put together in these rooms to, the feminine plant is looking to have a mate, right? So it creates these buds to attract a male plant, but there's no male plants in the rooms. So they grow these buds to be bigger and brighter and higher THC levels so they can attract a mate, which they never get. So the plant is very sexually frustrated. And
oh, that's interesting. I never thought about that.
Literally.
I do remember from being a kid, if you let a male plant get in the mix with your females, you get a bunch of seeds.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get a bunch of male plants. Don't they all turn male or something?
If they're fertilized, yeah, like that.
Okay,
yeah, they're germinated. Yeah, if they're germinated, yes. But so that's why you keep them separate. So the female plant is just constantly competing. They're constantly competing against each other. And in that, they never get to mate really. And they're constantly just mixing the genetics over and over again to raise higher THC levels so that they can compete against each other. And in that, there's a lot of distortion, and the plant spirit isn't really happy. And you could see this, if you can really attune to the plant's energy, you'll see. And, that's my experience of why there's a lot of distortion around the plant, and it does give a lot more anxiety than it used to. And it's really, playing with that female energy is like playing with a woman's scorn. She's upset. She's not happy the way that she's been treated, and she'll kind of lure you in like this temptress. And then eventually, she'll give you these illusions of how you can change your life, but most people don't really act on it in that state.
So true, dude.
And those things never really manifest.
That's so true. That's really interesting. I've told the story before, so I'll make it brief for those that already heard it. But a couple of years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I accidentally got high on some gummies. I thought they were just like CBD, but they had some other shit in them.
Yeah.
And it was super scary because it was like 10 in the morning. Wasn't expecting it. All of a sudden, I'm just like high as shit. And I've been sober for almost 30 years. Like I don't smoke weed. It was problematic for me, so I stopped doing it. And I'm like panicking, getting all paranoid, totally freaking out. And then eventually I just had the idea, I just need to go put on some music and an eye mask and just like journey this out and just see if there's something there for me. And to your point, I had all these insights and breakthroughs and creative ideas. The music started sounding really good. I mean, I almost got to the point where it was enjoyable. And I thought, oh, this is like a plant medicine journey. You know, I mean, it is, right? It is a plant, obviously. But when I came down and it wore off, I could not remember one thing that I thought had been meaningful during the experience versus, you know, ayahuasca or psilocybin or other plant medicines I've worked with. I mean, I can't forget what I learned, right? It's like so deeply ingrained in terms of just insights and revelations that, you know, I mean, I'm sure I could forget if I didn't write them down or make some effort, but point being, when it wears off, I'm like, oh shit, I got work to do. I mean, there's like an integration list now, right? Of like things I'm going to hold myself accountable to based on, you know, the truths that were revealed to me. But yeah, cannabis was just like totally chaotic and not tangible at all, which is really interesting that you described that particular plant's essence as feminine energy, because it's very chaotic, right? And it's like multifaceted and multi-directional, and it's emotive, right? It's like, it's dynamic. It's not static, versus something like peyote or wachuma is like, you're very much in your body. Things are very grounded, even though you might be like having a deep experience in visuals and things like that. There's still, I don't know, there's like an order to it. And there's a real kind of disorder to cannabis. At least based on that, you know, that one experience I had.
I think it's a common experience in that sense, where she will do this dance with you and give you these insights. And then you wake up the next day and you don't really remember what happened. And then you're like, yeah, okay, maybe I got to go back and revisit that. And then there'll be different insights, never really the same ones. And it's just this spiral. And then eventually she just takes more than she gives. You know, it's less and less insights, more and more lethargy, more and more brain fog. And yes, it can be used intentionally. It can be a wonderful medicine for people that are really suffering. I totally get that. I'm not trying to take anything away from cannabis in that sense. I'm very grateful for my, you know, relationship with the plant. It taught me so much. And it also showed me that eventually she just takes more than she gives. And I just really value clarity so much. I'd just so much rather be clear than playing with that distortion.
I think we all know what happens when supply chains break down. Things you rely on to thrive and even survive don't get where they need to go when you need them. Your vascular system is also a supply chain, and if we don't keep it open and flowing, it could be headed for a breakdown. Here's the deal. Your body runs on one thing, circulation. It's how oxygen gets to your brain, nutrients reach your muscles and organs, and your heart keeps everything moving. But when your vascular system slows down, it's like a supply chain bottleneck, so deliveries don't arrive on time, systems start failing, and over time, nothing moves the way it should. So you could start experiencing low energy, brain fog, muscle fatigue, and even dull skin and poor complexion. And that's why you need to check out the Vascular Health Bundle from Calroy. Calroy's got two flagship products that are both awesome. They've got one called Arterisol HP and Vascanox HP, and they work together to restore efficient circulation and prompt your blood vessels to open up so nutrients can actually get delivered. This one's a no-brainer, guys. We need blood, energy, and vitality moving through the body. So if you want to get moving, visit calroy.com/Luke and get your best price today. Pick up a 3-pack bundle and get a free canister of nitric oxide test strips to track your results. Remember, your vascular system is the highway of life, so make sure to keep those lanes open. That's CALROY.com, calroy.com/Luke. When you had the cannabis business, were you selling to dispensaries and, you know, making dabs and like all this kind of stuff? Were you like a wholesaler, and then people would essentially like white label your products and create their own brands and things like that, or were you guys a brand in and of yourself?
Yeah, it was both. We were huge, right? We were a monster player in that game, and they were completely vertically integrated, where we grow it, we do all the different formats of cannabis, from pre-rolls to hash to distilled, all the crystals.
Hash.
And
oh God,
yeah,
I used to love hash.
yeah, we brought back the hash. That was a whole cool
Wow.
thing that the OGs really appreciated. Yeah, so we did that. We had our own brands that I helped develop as well, which was really me finding my niche. I really enjoy brand building and building something that community gets involved in. And then, and we also wholesaled to other companies that were looking for quality product, because it's not so easy to grow cannabis. A lot of people think they do it and then they can do it and then they get to a big scale, and there's a lot of challenges. So we were good at wholesaling as well. And it was kind of cool to be able to sell thousands of kilos of cannabis legally to the government. Government's buying it as well.
Really?
It was a trip. Yeah.
In Canada?
In Canada, yeah.
What do they do with it?
Well, it's the government runs it. The government runs the cannabis buying operation. So the store would have to have a license that's licensed through the government, and they become the distributor. I forget exactly what it's called.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they become the distributor to the store. So it's not direct to the store.
Got it.
Yeah, exactly. So you're selling to the government, which is pretty wild.
The government tends to want their hands in everything, especially if there's money involved. All right, last question on the cannabis topic.
Yeah.
Has anyone developed a decaf hash yet? Because I would like that. I love smoking hash, like the taste of it. When I was a kid, I used to just eat it.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't get me high, but I didn't know that. So I would eat it, but I would have so much hash that I'd steal from people's parents and shit when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what they weighed, but big ass bricks of like black hash. And I love that earthy flavor. Like there's nothing, it's a very unique flavor, like the smoke, the smell of it. And I kind of, I don't want to say I miss it because I never think about it, but when someone mentions like, oh man, hash.
Yeah.
Has anyone figured out a way to make like a TH-free hash just for the smoking experience?
I don't think that's a thing.
It's not, there's no money in it.
Not that, it's
I'm
just
probably the only weirdo in the world that like wants to smoke hash but not get high at all.
Yeah, I don't think that's a thing, because like the whole way to make hash is by getting the resin, the THC resin. So it's just part of the part of the package.
Yeah. Because a couple of years ago I was getting like TH-free pre-rolls.
Sure.
They're quite nice.
Yeah.
They don't taste as good as like real bud, but it's kind of nice.
Yeah, those exist for sure.
You get a pretty like solid CBD, not a buzz, but just, like definitely puts you back in your seat a bit.
I used to smoke CBD too. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the mushrooms. You talked about how you enjoy building brands, and you've got this brand Eons, which is how I first met you. Someone turned me onto your stuff, and now, we live down the road, so we become friends, and I just take it for granted, but I never really got the backstory on it.
Yeah.
So take me through kind of the launch of that and how medicinal mushrooms started to pull you in that direction.
Yeah, so once I realized the impact that mushrooms can make, it's really the oldest living technology in this world. It's the smartest living technology in this world when you really start figuring out how smart it is, and it connects all plant life, all crops, all trees. They're all communicating through this mycelium network. It's like the original internet. It's like Mother Nature's brain. So it's the oldest, it's the smartest, it's the largest living organism as well as the mycelial network. So it's like, hey, if I'm going to align with one of these oldest living technologies, might as well be the mushrooms, might as well be the mycelium. And so that was the inspiration. And it was really to go out and make an impact in the world, especially around mental health. I saw the power that it could do, transform my gut health, which is extremely connected to mental health. So it was about creating a vehicle that we could, harness this technology and bring it out to the world and make what I believe is going to be the most iconic mushroom brand of all time. And when you think of all time, well, there's decades, there's centuries, there's millennias, there's epochs, there's eras, and there's eons. It's the longest period of time. It's the closest thing to infinity that there is. And every 100 million years, the universe sends out a pulse that changes the paradigm that we live in forever. And that's what this brand represents. It's going to change people's lives, truly, because when you change your your mind, when you change your psyche, your life actually changes, you know, and you change the way that your awareness is and your consciousness. And that's what these mushrooms really do. They help actually change your mind.
Well said. Yeah, if your mind doesn't change, good luck changing your life.
Yes.
I know that from firsthand experience. Let's go through, you know, some of the different mushrooms. I mean, we were talking about David Wolfe, no relation to you, Alex Wolfe. Someone asked me that the other day. See David Wolfe's son? I don't think the ages match up, but he was the first guy. Always got to give him credit. He was the first guy, I don't know, 20 years ago maybe, that I ever heard talking about, you know, lion's mane, cordyceps, reishi. What's the other one? Chaga, cacao, Chinese herbs, ashwagandha, like Ayurvedic herbs. Like he was the guy that was kind of like the raw vegan hippie dude that, you know, is only a certain sect of people would buy into.
Yeah.
And then over the years, I've watched mushrooms and cacao and all those things that he used to promote so consistently. Now they're like a thing, you know. It's really cool. I mean, I see like young people on TikTok like, I like cordyceps, you know. I'm like, wow, this is cool. We've come a long way.
Yeah.
But I've also, you know, worked with a lot of the different, and we'll get into the, you know, the psychoactive mushrooms in a second, but just, you know, on the food grade kind of functional or medicinal mushrooms, been using them for a long time, but also have had a wide spectrum of results using them, because there's, you know, so many fugazi kind of versions of that. So we'll talk about that too, like extraction methods, growth methods, et cetera, because you can, you know, call something a cordyceps or lion's mane, and it may or may not have the potency and kind of medicinal value that you're looking for.
Yeah.
But let's start with what it was that actually helped your gut. Was that like turkey tail or something?
Yeah, turkey tail, chaga were the ones I was using for my gut.
And what form of them? You know, like we can do like alcohol extraction, water extraction, depending on which mushroom. Sometimes dual extraction. You're doing something even cooler now with this kind of liposomal thing, which is probably much more cost effective for everyone because it takes less raw materials. But what form of those were you taking where you actually noticed like, holy shit, something's happening?
Yeah, it's a great question because it does make a difference. I was taking a liquid tincture, dual extraction. And that's the thing that I learned in that time working in the CBD company and the cannabis company, and then later in the mushrooms is bioavailability is a real thing. The ability for the body to absorb the molecule or the active ingredient in that case. And mushrooms typically, depending on the mushroom, but typically prefer to stay wet. You know, it's that relationship with water, the mycelial network with the water relationship. They're hydrophilic, essentially, these molecules. So they like water. So to keep it wet, more effective. So that's where I was first using these tinctures. Worked amazing on my gut health. Like in a really short amount of time, I had clarity again. And you know, I was dialed in. And then from there, I was like, okay, whenever we bring out this brand, we want to make sure that it's bioavailable and that they stay hydrophilic. So we can get the molecules into the bloodstream really quickly. So that's the thing. Sometimes these powders and stuff like that, they're already dehydrated. They lost a lot of the essence, you know, they're dried up. And not to say that they don't work, but you just may have to go higher on the dose. But in this case, you get the full power of the mushroom, and you actually don't need to overdose, which is cool.
That makes sense. You know, I never thought about that. Mushrooms are always kind of soggy and moist, and like they grow in our yard like crazy certain times of the year, but it's only when there's a lot of moisture around.
100%.
Yeah, that's
a relationship. Everything's a relationship.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Okay, so you're playing around with the turkey tail extracts. What about like lion's mane and cordyceps?
Yeah, totally. So I started on the gut health stuff, the turkey tail, the chaga, then got into the lion's mane for cognitive, cordyceps for energy, and I was becoming a new version of myself, a new human, you know. More awareness, more clarity, more energy, sleep is better. Started taking the reishi for sleep, and I was like, wow, these mushrooms this is it, man. Like these things have the codes, right? So, and that was the inspiration. So I was starting with those mushrooms to start off, putting them in products that can actually help modern day problems that we have, gut health, productivity, energy, sleep, anxiety, these kind of things, all with the intention to gain trust, showing people that there's a relationship here that you can have with these mushrooms that actually help your modern day problems, where they're here to solve a problem. And when you're ready, we introduce the legal psychedelic microdosing. That was always the intention, is to take it to the next level of awareness and consciousness.
I remember the first time I met you, we were in the water out on Lake Austin at Josh's son's birthday party. And I was like, oh, this guy's cool. He's got like long hair. He's like, seems like real chill, kind of hippie vibe. And I forgot about this, but you were telling me about the legal microdose. And at that time you were kind of in the R&D phase of figuring out how to get higher bioavailability, to actually get it in your bloodstream, thus into your cells, so that it does something other than just cost you money. And now, like, here we are. What was that, a couple of years ago?
That was going to be, I think, at least 2 years ago.
Yeah. And here we are, and it's happening.
Yeah.
When it comes to the chaga, reishi, lion's mane, all the ones that we mentioned, how did you suss out getting the highest potency, cleanest raw material to work with?
Yeah, that's the cool thing about being in the mushroom space versus the cannabis space. Cannabis space got pretty cutthroat, and a lot of lawyers and greedy people that really had no business being in the space kind of took it over. But in the mushroom space, it's a lot more cooperative. People are on the mushrooms, so
Right. Higher consciousness.
Consciousness. They want to help each other out. They want to bring mushrooms to the world. Everybody I meet in the space pretty much has that vibe, that energy of, there's a few bad actors here and there, but for the most part, it's people that are more tapped in. The consciousness is higher. They want to bring these mushrooms out. And usually what ends up happening is you start working with the mushrooms, and the mushrooms actually start guiding you and working through you. So it's way more symbiotic, like mushrooms are. So I got to just meet some really cool people and referred to some really cool people. There's a wonderful lady named Jamie out of Utah that we get our mushrooms off of. There's another guy out of California that I won't mention his name, but he has the best of the best in, the other product that we're super excited about. But it's been an awesome experience. And again, all about relationships and asking the tough questions and, figuring out what their processes are and growing methods and all this kind of stuff. But people in this space are, it's refreshing. They're pretty cool.
What's the difference between fruiting bodies and what is it?
Mycelium?
Mycelium? Yeah. I've heard that, a lot of these mushroom companies that sell the powders are growing them on, rice or a substrate.
Oats and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and then, you buy it by the weight and you just end up getting an inferior product because it doesn't have, the punch that the fruiting bodies have. But I've never looked that deeply into it. I just know people that I trust and seem to be very knowledgeable about the mushroom space are always ragging on the mycelium and, boosting the fruiting bodies. Is that something you've run into? Is there some truth to that? Or in some cases, is there a benefit to having, the entourage effect of having both?
I think it's that, in my experience. And for the most part, you can't really go wrong with the fruiting body. There's more moisture in the fruiting body, and it's more of the plant or the mushroom's full essence. And Paul Stamets, the OG mushroom man, he's a big fan of the mycelium and saying lion's mane is just best in the mycelium form. So we do both. We do the mycelium, we do the fruiting body. We, make it bioavailable. So it's getting uploaded into the human body. Technology is uploaded quickly. So you feel the state change. You build a relationship. You see that's like, wow, this is really working in real time. You're not really wondering, is this working or not? Everything we come out with has to have like a validation experience. Like, I was feeling this way, I take it, now I'm feeling this way. And it's like, now you're building that relationship. For me, it's really all about relationships, Luke, in every aspect of life, every aspect of nature. And so, we believe mycelium and the fruiting body. Some mushrooms obviously better for the fruiting body, and some is good for the mycelium. But you can't really go wrong with the fruiting body.
Have you looked into the reishi spores? Is there anything to that?
In what sense?
Well, there have been companies over the years that sell like reishi spore products, usually in an oil or something like that. But they're just like crazy expensive, like super, super expensive. So when something's way more expensive than the competing product, you know, we tend to think it must be better, but I've not looked that deeply into it.
Yeah.
But it kind of the idea there, I think, is like rather than, you know, the fruiting body of the reishi or I don't know, do they have mycelium? Like, cause they're a tree mushroom. So I guess there's mycelium growing into the tree.
Yeah.
I think the idea there is it's like that's their life force and vitality, because it's kind of like the sperm of the mushroom, for lack of a better way to say it. Doesn't sound very appetizing, mushroom sperm. Yeah. But I always was kind of intrigued by that. But then again, you know, it's like, I mean, you really, I think if you're someone who, you know, doesn't want to waste your money, you have to kind of do some deep research on this stuff to figure out what's marketing jargon and what is actual science, you know? So is the spores aren't something you've looked into personally?
Not personally. I've heard great things about spores, but I've never actually dove deep into the mushroom sperm.
Got it. You're probably better off for that. Okay, so we've got the category of medicinal or functional mushrooms, like non-psychoactive, although, you know, lion's mane, as you said, can definitely, you know, has been proven to have like massive cognitive benefits, but you're not going to like feel it in the sense that you would a microdose or something.
Right.
Why did you elect to go for the Amanita Muscaria mushroom, which is totally legal and much safer in the sense that you're not going to like start hallucinating on it? Why did you go that route rather than, you know, trying to sort of wait for legislation to ease up? And many people in the, you know, psilocybin space are kind of thinking they're getting ahead of the curve, much like in the cannabis space back in the day. So they're kind of, you know, going underground and starting to create products that are a little more like, you know, gray area, in hopes that legislation will evolve and they'll already kind of, you know, have a foothold in the industry. But you went a different direction. We're like, cool, I'm leaving that alone, going full legality with the Amanita. So tell me about that decision process.
Yeah, everything I do is legal. And I wanted to be able to carve out a path using all legal methods, you know, not having to watch my back or anything like that. And I have all respect for, you know, the mushroom cowboys out there that are doing their thing. Like, all respect, there's no love lost there, but I'm very forward facing. And this was really to be able to pave a way and show people that there's other psychedelic mushrooms that are legal, and we could study them, we could research them, we could bring out the data on them, we could advertise about it, we could pay taxes on it, we can just show that this thing is very front page. It's not something to be hiding in the shadows about, you know. That's not where I'm at in my life. I'm not here to hide in the shadows or, you know, get lost in the crowd. It's like, no, these mushrooms are amazing. They've been around for millions of years. And there's a mushroom that's incredibly powerful in its nature. And it's psychedelic. It's non-hallucinogenic. It can have amazing benefits on the human body and the human mind. And we're going to use this mushroom as an example and really study it and really gain trust around it so that we can pave the way for psilocybin to become legal. I love psilocybin. I'm microdosing psilocybin right now. And so I'm a big fan, and I'm going to be a steward for that as well. But yeah, this mushroom really found me. I was in a sound bath ceremony in Florida, and I started getting images of that iconic red and white capped mushroom in my psyche. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. It was communicating with me. Had a really clear signal. So I went and started doing some research, and I was like, wow, this mushroom is actually legal. Go figure. So that was in November of 2022 when I had the idea. And I was like, man, I'm going to bring this to market. You know, this is a great idea. It's legal. And the mushroom had other plans. You know, I was like, no, you're not ready yet to bring this to market. And so even when I saw you in Lake Austin, like I was still working on it, R&D. That's almost 2 years ago. You know, the mushroom really, it made me develop a relationship with it first. So it wasn't like, yeah, you're not just going to bring this to market and make a bunch of money. It's like, you're going to get to know what really the essence of this mushroom is. And in that, it got me to do a lot of work on myself. It got me to make a lot of changes in my life, you know, how I eat, how I show up in the world, how I treat people, many things, you know, sex life, all kinds of stuff. It really put me through the ringer, put me through this like emotional American Gladiator situation, you know? So it was wild and it was amazing. And it was so cool that by the time like I had really done the work using this mushroom, every kind of dose you can imagine, from micro to superhero dose, by the time I was really dialed in, the mushroom was like, okay. And then literally like a week later, it went on to the market.
All right, I'm not trying to be dramatic here, but stress is a killer, literally. Not only does it lead to low energy, sleep loss, and irritability, but it's also a key factor in illnesses like high blood pressure, diabetes, and autoimmune disease. And with more than 80% of people saying stress is affecting their physical health, I'd say we've got a real situation on our hands here. Well, thankfully, our friends over at Just Thrive Health developed a way to safeguard us from the silent killer. And this one, I assure you, is truly safe and effective. It's called Just Calm. Just Calm's exclusive mood-lifting blend is clinically proven to help you relax and breathe easier in as little as 4 weeks. It's chock full of a special mood biotic strain of probiotics called B. longum 1714. And multiple clinical studies show that it helps you maintain balanced cortisol levels, promotes vitality, supports better sleep, and encourages a healthy mood. Just Calm's also formulated with 3 targeted B vitamins proven to help maintain gray matter and support optimal neurotransmitter function. So just punch up justthrivehealth.com and use the code Luke20 to save 20% off a 90-day bottle. And Just Calm is designed as a companion to their amazing spore-based probiotic. And while the probiotic addresses the root cause of chronic gut-brain conditions, Just Calm busts through stress, and it really leaves me feeling cool and in control no matter what life throws at me. If you want the full details on what makes Just Thrive special, make sure to check out the Lifestylist episode 499. And for a steady, chill, more relaxed you, visit justthrivehealth.com and use that code Luke20 to save 20%. So this Amanita muscaria, about which I've done one prior episode, we'll put that in the show notes, which, by the way, the show notes today are lukestory.com/wolf, W-O-L-F-E, lukestory.com/wolf. And we'll put a link to the Eons products there as well. Got a code Luke20. We'll put all that in the clickable show description on the podcast apps. But I did this episode on Amanita. And then, of course, immediately I got to get some, got some, started making tea with it and experimenting with it, thinking that it was going to be much more closely related to psilocybin. It's not in many ways, as you know, and you can unpack for us. But the first thing was that the amount of material in a microdose of Amanita versus psilocybin. I mean, psilocybin, we're talking about, 1 to 200 milligrams, 1,000 milligrams being a gram. That would be like the threshold where you start to kind of not be able to, operate in your normal way. And then, if people journey with psilocybin, maybe 3.5 to 5 grams or something like that. Some people more, but 3.5 grams to any size body, you're going to be in a totally different place.
Yeah.
Amanita, I started making the tea, and I'm like, I start out at 3 grams in the tea for a microdose, and I'm like, oh, I feel relaxed and like pretty happy. Definitely like noticeable in the sense that I just feel real chill, but definitely not high or anything like that. So I progressively started playing around with it, especially for sleep, because of its effect on REM, which maybe you can tell us more about too. And then, I noticed, I slept pretty good. I got a pretty good, REM score. And then at one point, on 2 different occasions, I put quite a lot in there just to kind of push the envelope, and had very challenging experiences. That's way too much. Night sweats, just weird dreams, just not a fun ride. And I was like, okay, thank you for teaching me. I bow to the Amanita. I got a little too, aggressive there, and it showed me what that felt like.
Yeah.
And then I got kind of scared off, because I'm like, I don't know, what's the right dose? And then, if I want to take some during the day and, still be functional, et cetera. So I kind of backed off from the raw materials. And then when you finally brought your, what's it called? Dialed in?
Dialed.
Do I have
Yeah,
one
it's
up
this one
here?
here, yeah.
Okay, this guy right here. For those watching this, it's in its box still. But you're like, yeah, dude, we nailed it. And I don't know if you remember this, but I was like, I don't want to feel it. So is there any risk of, taking too much? And I forget what you said, but you're like, you could basically take the whole jar and you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But I want to give you props because I really believe in the wisdom of this particular mushroom, but it's very hard to work with, even though it's legal. It's very hard to work with in terms of preparation and dosing. It's weird. It's like sketchy and just kind of, it's not, it's hard to standardize, right? And so when you brought me the first, test batch of your, sublingual tablets, I'm like, this guy fucking cracked the code, dude. There is, I really, and I'm trying not to exaggerate, on this show, just when I get excited, but there is nothing that I've ever found that eliminates anxiety as fast as that product. Like, you can be in basically like a limbic system, freak out, fight or flight.
Yeah.
Put one or two of those in your mouth, chew them up, hold them under your tongue for 2 minutes, and like, you're noticeably calmer and you stay calm afterward. I mean, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
It's like so fucking epic.
Yeah. Thank you.
But I've taken probably like 4 at a time of yours, like nowhere close to feeling high at all.
Yeah.
Like, no, I mean, I feel like I could take a bunch and still be totally normal, but I'd probably just be wasting it. So I guess I'm just saying, like, from my journey with Amanita and a lot of kind of ups and downs and missteps along the way, and eventually just being like, I don't know, like, I don't understand how to work with this particular energy. Now I do, because you figured it out.
Yeah.
And for sleep too.
Yeah.
Like sleep onset and REM, the things I was trying to get when I was like kind of overdosing on the raw mushrooms. So tell me a little bit about kind of the formulation and this patented delivery system you have, and any history. I think the cultural history of Amanita is really interesting.
Yeah.
It's going to be the whole Amanita download as far as your journey so far.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for the feedback. It means a lot, especially coming from you, master biohacker.
My only complaint is that you give me like 1 jar at a time and it's gone in like a couple days. So I love them, dude. I get amped up,
It's my excuse to keep seeing you.
Yeah, I get a little too amped up sometimes with my nootropics and just work and just taking on too much. And then I'm like, oh my God. So it's like, I'm always on this roller coaster of like getting myself super optimized and then like too anxious.
Yeah.
And then so I've been using yours a lot to like bring myself back down to earth.
I appreciate that. And that's really what this product was designed for, was for anxiety. I truly believe, this specific product with Dialed can disrupt the anti-anxiety medication market, which is a $18 billion a year industry in the United States alone. And there's a lot of young men and a lot of people really suffering from anxiety, just the way that society is designed. So that was really the problem that we wanted to solve. I used to have anxiety. I get it. And that overthinking, mind going too fast kind of thing, and comparison and all this kind of stuff. So I get it. I was there, and that was the inspiration for this, is what problem do we want to solve? Anxiety. And this mushroom, the Amanita muscaria, it works extremely well on the GABA receptor, which is the receptor of the brain that regulates anxiety. It regulates your nervous system. It regulates fear. It regulates addiction, PTSD, like pretty heavy duty stuff. And there's a lot of studies that we got into, researched them, that showed all this, and there was a book, I mentioned it earlier, pre-podcast, by this Russian doctor called Baba Masha, who's like the grandmother of Amanita muscaria. Awesome lady. And she did a study with 8,000 people for no reason, just to show the data. She's just like, I love this mushroom. My husband and I have amazing results on it, but let's see what everybody else has to say. Like, let's just make it an open study and let the data speak for itself. She wasn't selling any Amanita. She didn't have any cool products or anything. It was just literally for the data. And what the data showed literally just confirmed your story. On the people that would take higher doses, they wouldn't have the best experience. They'd have these kind of wonky experiences. However, in microdoses, specifically amazing results. And people were having cure rates of cocaine addiction and alcohol addiction and cigarette addiction and psoriasis and anxiety and all these, heavy duty kind of things from microdose use, they were cured. And when I read that book, I was like, wow, there's really something here. The data just speaks for itself. And it wasn't a funded study or anything like that. She just did it on her own. So I was like, wow, there's really something here. And in that time, I was experimenting with different doses, and very similar to yourself. Larger doses, the mushroom would kind of smack me around and have these crazy dreams and all this kind of stuff, and sweats and all this kind of stuff.
What was the highest dose you did?
I did 21 grams in the forest.
Oh, dude. But like in a tea or something?
In a tea, yeah.
Okay.
In a tea.
Oh my God.
Yeah, in the forest, which is even more amplified. But it was really for that thing that you alerted to earlier, is like, well, what happens if someone takes a whole bottle of that? And I knew I was bringing this product to market, and I wanted to know what happens if someone takes this thing to an extreme. So it's like, well, I'll be the guinea pig. I'll test myself out. And it definitely wasn't comfortable. It definitely wasn't enjoyable, but I got to see, like, yeah, there's really nothing to be afraid about. If you did do a large dose, yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's going to show you things about yourself. It's soul revealing. That's what psychedelic, the word means. It's soul revealing. So it reveals things to you on your soul that maybe you haven't been paying attention to. So it helps develop a relationship with your soul, which is pretty rad. So yeah, all this to say is the less you use, the better it works. And yeah, some people have a lot of work to do around anxiety, myself included. It completely got me through my anxious phase. And it does so much reparation to the GABA receptor. It just keeps repairing that receptor over and over. So eventually, usually after a 2-month protocol, you don't even need to use dialed anymore, and you don't even need to use anti-anxiety medication anymore. You've repaired your relationship with it, and it's really cool. And in that process, one more thing I'll say, and then we can jump into the folklore, but it helps with your sleep incredibly well. After 3 weeks of use, it resets your circadian rhythm. It aligns you to the natural rhythm of the sun. And you want to go to bed early, you want to get up early, you start receiving more light through your eyes of the sun, which is a big thing. And it starts to activate these parts of yourself. So it's really, really cool. This mushroom has so much intelligence. It's very, very innately intelligent, and it knows what the user is trying to work through, and it knows when you're trying to escape in it as well. So if you start overtaking it, it's going to make it uncomfortable for you, and it's going to basically tell you to back off.
I can speak from experience of that being true.
Yeah.
So for people that are just learning of this particular mushroom, what we're talking about is, this will get us into the folklore, is the emoji, right? The red mushroom with the little white specks. When I kind of discovered Amanita, I started seeing it freaking everywhere. It's like Christmas ornaments and, the Smurfs. It's like literally Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
I'm just like, this is so weird. It's so woven into the fabric of our culture, yet the actual mushroom itself is totally absent from our culture.
Yeah.
And why has it persisted as this iconic representation of that kingdom when no one's using it?
Yeah.
At least here. Maybe, I don't know, maybe in Russia or Siberia or something they are, or elsewhere, but definitely not here. So give us a little bit of the history and maybe why it's been sort of dismissed in use, but not in terms of its representation.
Yeah, I love that you're onto that, because it's so true. Everybody that's watching already knows this mushroom. It's already in your subconscious right now. You think of a mushroom, you're probably thinking of this mushroom. Good chance. The iconic red and white capped mushroom. And yeah, it's in all these amazing things in our pop culture. Super Mario Brothers, the story of Santa Claus, like the red and white costume that Santa Claus is wearing is based on the mushroom. So I believe it's really the genius of this mushroom that it's made itself fully developed into our pop culture. yet it's waited for the right time to be released, into our human technology, until it was ready, until we were ready to tap into its consciousness. I believe it's innately intelligent. It's divinely connected to the earth. Like, most people don't know this about Amanita, Luke, but it can't be replicated in a lab. You can't be growing it in a closet like you can with psilocybin. You can't farm it. Like, it's completely symbiotic and it's completely seasonal. So it needs the right amount of Mother Nature's creations, the right amount of rain on the right amount of tree, on the right tree, in the right spot, the right amount of moisture, and then this mushroom just pops up.
That's so interesting because I'm sure there are other plants and things like that you can't cultivate, but it's interesting that something that has so much inherent value and utility can't really be harnessed by man and exploited.
Yeah.
Right? It's so interesting.
Exactly.
It's also an interesting, kind of basis of a product line too, because I'm sure, your kind of supply chains are much more, nuanced and difficult at times than something that anyone can just grow in their closet or pop open a lab or, a grow space and create. That's super, super weird that it's just like, hey, I'm here, but you got to come find me.
You got to come find me. Exactly. And it's like, you'll only, when the teacher's ready, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And it's really like that. Like, you got to go and find it. And like exactly how you alluded to, like sorting out the supply chain of this mushroom was a whole adventure in itself, because you get to go through the people that have developed a relationship with this mushroom. And they want to know, why are you bringing this mushroom out to the world? And who are you? And what do you stand for? And what's your integrity? Because they already went and did the work to go and forge it in the woods of Siberia or, northern Canada and all these kind of things. So it's like, it's been a really cool adventure. And, but yeah, it's completely symbiotic. It can't be replicated, which is part of its magic. And when you go into the history of this mushroom, it's truly a magic mushroom. Not in the hallucinogenic, trip out with your buddies type of magic, but magic in its essence. Like, Siberian shamans used to use this mushroom to really tap in with the divine, using the tea. Vikings used to use this mushroom before battle, and they would call it berserker mode because it would slow down their perception of time. And that's really what it does, is it shifts you out of the conditioned mind, left brain, where time is a construct, and it creates space in between your thoughts. And in the space is where the creator is waiting for you to tap into him. So it's literally giving you access to the creator, to the creative mind, to the right side of the brain. And in that, there's a lot of possibilities. You become more creative. You become more like the creator. And that's what the Vikings were tapping into. Is like, wow, they could slow down time. They would see their enemies moving in slow motion and they would dominate, and that's how they were able to take over, was using that mushroom. So it's pretty cool in that sense. There's Irish mysticism around this, where they would see a goddess with red hair and very pale skin, coming out in certain seasons. And then the ground would be covered with these amanitas, and it's also in Hinduism with the soma, the ancient elixir that the Hindu mystics would drink. They don't say it for sure, but they give it another name that's very close to Amanita. So it's like, and it even goes back to early stage Christianity. There's so many different parts of our history, parts of our culture in these, but they all have one thing in common, and it's a divine connection, to spirit, to nature. So there's definitely something there about this mushroom. And the really, really cool thing, and the last thing I'll say, is you actually only need a microdose for it to work amazingly well. So it's really the perfect introduction for someone that wants to get into psychedelics without tripping out, without, losing your mind or anything like that. You don't have to, it doesn't take up a big amount of space in your day, but it'll calm you down. and it'll start to reveal things to you about yourself.
Tell me about the delivery system. So I think this is one of the main issues with any kind of natural supplement, or I mean even pharmaceuticals for that matter, is the amount you actually assimilate and get into your bloodstream and into your cells that will take effect versus how much you take. I know like CBD, you know, they say you only absorb a small fraction of it. I mean, melatonin, if you take oral melatonin, it's like a very small percentage.
Yes.
So a lot of us, especially me, probably more so than your average person, spend all this money on supplements and even high quality food for that matter, you know, and it's like, okay, how much are you buy something for $25, $60, whatever it is, and you take it consistently, how much of it are you actually using versus just expensive poop and pee? And I think that was something that I really noticed when we had that first meeting. You're like, because I know about liposomal, like Quicksilver Scientific makes these liquid liposomals, and you know, I've interviewed Dr. Chris Shade, and he showed me, well, you know, your cell's this big, and this molecule of whatever it is you're trying to take is bigger than your cell. It can't get in, and so you have these little kind of bubbles of fat that will go through the cell wall because the cell wall likes fat to get in there, et cetera, right? So the liposomal thing is fairly well known, and they use it in the pharmaceutical industry, but the way you explained it was a bit different, to the point that you have patents on this particular delivery system, and it's not liquid like most liposomals are. So tell us about that particular part of it.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. It's something that I'm really proud about that we have, because being around, you know, the health and wellness space and the CBD space is, you learn that it's not the active ingredient that you're taking per se, but how much your body can actually absorb. It's all about absorbability. Just like anything really in life, like you can give someone the information, but how you deliver the information will determine how it's received. And it's the same thing in this. You have something, you have an active ingredient, and every active ingredient has a different rate of bioavailability. The body absorbs things differently. Basically, I'm going to oversimplify it here, but on its relationship with water. You know, we're water beings. So some molecules, some active ingredients are hydrophobic, meaning when they interact with water, they get really big. Like CBD. Take CBD, it hits your saliva, it blows up like a donut, and like exactly like you said, Luke, your cell is small, CBD's big, you're not absorbing it. Goes through your system, you pee it out. And it's like this for many. And some, they get smaller. They get so small now it's going through the cell. Hydrophilic. So it was really about finding, okay, we have these active ingredients, these mushrooms that are amazing. How do we make them get absorbed into the body better than anybody else? Because that's the name of the game here. We've already seen the old supplement game where it's expensive pee and poo, like you said. Like, we don't want to play that game. It's not what this is about. This is about giving the user a validation experience so they can actually make changes in their life and make more optimal decisions. So that's where we got these patents. We found 14 patents on bioavailability using a desiccated liposomal technology. So meaning we're able to put them in liposomes where, depending on the active ingredient, we could keep it wet or we could keep it dry in whatever format that we need to put it in, so that it's absorbed through the mucosal, right into the bloodstream, breaking the blood-brain barrier in about a minute. So that's why you're feeling the effects of Dialed right away. You're feeling anxious. Take Dialed. A minute later, wow, wave of calmness. There's no question. It's not like, well, when is this going to hit, or should I take more? It's like everything that we do with Eons has to have a validation experience. And the way to do that is with bioavailability. And it really gives more value back to the consumer, back to the user. Is like, wow, I'm paying for this. Now I actually get to experience it. So yeah.
Yeah. The only other way to really do that is if you smoke something.
Yeah. Right to the bloodstream.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like if you smoke a CBD doobie, it's going to hit you way harder than if you had like half a bottle of the liquid.
For sure. Because right into your bloodstream.
Yeah.
The oxygen. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But smoking has its, its negative effects as well.
Yeah, it does. You just reminded me though, for a while I was smoking Amanita.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard people doing that.
It tastes pretty funky, but
Yeah.
you get a little effect from it.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't know.
Something to do.
It's kind of dirty and smelly,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't know. It's not practical for most people. Even me, like I liked it, but I was just like, it's kind of a hassle.
Yeah.
So with the delivery system that you guys created, is that also in your like sleep product and the functional mushroom gummies and stuff, or is it exclusive to the dialed Amanita product?
So the first product that we came out with, the technology, is the deeper sleep.
I keep those in my nightstand.
Yeah.
I don't always remember to take them before I go to bed, but what I do, and also with the dialed product, if I wake up in the middle of the night because it's a full moon or something weird and I just wake up totally hyper, I'll do like a combo of those and just hold it under my tongue for a couple minutes, and it fucking makes you go back to sleep.
For sure.
It's crazy, dude.
It's an
like
amazing
nothing
combo.
does that. You can like, I don't know, take some GABA or something and it's like, oh, good luck. It just doesn't have the same instant effect.
Yeah. That's why we designed it. It was literally for if you want to fall asleep quickly and get back into deep sleep quickly. That's what the QuickSome technology is for. It goes right into your bloodstream.
So that's in the sleep one too.
That's in the deeper sleep and the dialed.
Got it. Okay.
When we were rolling out the brand, the technology wasn't fully developed yet. And, you know, Americans love gummies, and it was a very friendly way to introduce the brand. And like, if, you know, it's a stacked formula. So if like you want to just pass out, you take the gummies, you're going to pass out, you know, but I will say is like, you're going to feel a little bit of grogginess in the morning because you're really overdosing on all this stuff. But some people just need to fall asleep, and they're going to do that. The deeper sleep was designed to, exactly like you said, you wake up in the middle of the night, you want to fall back asleep quickly. It's right into your bloodstream within a minute. It's a microdose of melatonin for the people that don't like melatonin. It's still got the reishi mushroom in there. Or if you're going to bed and you just want to fall asleep quickly, that's what it's for.
Tell me about the gummies.
Yeah.
Because I think on the bottle it says like take 2, but they're like candy. They're too good.
I know.
You first gave me the first jar of that, it was gone in like 3 days. So I was just like, if it's out, I'll walk by and just eat 5. And I'm like, I know I'm wasting these because you don't need to take that many. But tell me what's in the gummies, and can you make them taste shittier so I can actually make them last longer?
No, I definitely won't be making them taste shittier for sure. It's part of our thing with Eons. Everything has to taste good. Everything has to work. And the reason for that is to get people to build a relationship with the mushrooms. And if it doesn't taste good, you know, mushrooms, a lot of people think they don't taste good. So it's like, okay, we got to make them taste good. And we just came out with a really stacked formula. It's everything you could think in there that works synergistically together. So it's got the reishi mushroom, it's got the passion flower, it's got the lavender, it's got the magnesium, it's got the melatonin, you know, so it really just covers all your bases for the people that really need to sleep. And it was our way to introduce the brand to people that were apprehensive about mushrooms and be like, yeah, no, this isn't going to trip you out. It will put you to sleep, and you'll have some lucid type dreams from the reishi mushroom, which helps your REM sleep. But yeah, they taste awesome, and people love them. So
what about the smart gummies? What's in those?
Yeah, the Common Focus gummies.
Yeah.
Common Focus gummies. It's lion's mane, 5-HTP, ashwagandha. They were really designed as when we were getting ready for dialed. It was like the pre-dialed. Just calm you down, focus you down. They're good for integrating if you have a big journey or something like that and your 5-HTP levels are depleted. It brings you back. It regulates you. Yeah, it was a more of a novel product, the Common Focus, but it was another way to introduce the brand to the community.
All right, and then what about the coffee?
Yeah,
which I had 2 jars of. I didn't realize, but when you were coming over, I was like, oh, make sure you bring product, and because that's how I get free product. So that everyone knows.
Yeah.
But then I actually had a jar of the coffee, and I think I haven't used it as much just because it's in a glass jar. And when I would use instant coffee is more like if I'm traveling or something and I don't want to have shitty Starbucks or something. So I would like put it in a bag so that I don't weigh my suitcase down. But it reminded me that you also threw in like chaga, cordyceps, and lion's mane, L-theanine, holy basil, like all these calming mushrooms and herbs with the coffee. So I'm going to like remind myself to really do a dedicated experiment with this now, even when I'm home. Because I think originally I was like, oh yeah, when I travel, and then I just didn't end up taking it with me. But give me the lowdown on the mushroom coffee, and if you could speak to what your take on is with the mold in coffee.
Oh,
you
right.
know, when Dave Asprey came out with Bulletproof years ago, like he got everyone all freaked out about the mold, and I think there's some truth to that. But is it as bad as we've been led to believe? And did you address that issue when you created a coffee product?
It's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. And yeah, we did. It was something I was really passionate about, was developing a superior mushroom coffee. I was a pilot, you know, like we talked about, for many, many years. And coffee for a pilot is like, you know, it's your fuel. It's what you go to. And I got to experience what, you know, regular coffee did to my body and to my brain and all this kind of stuff. I was like, man, there's got to be a better way to drink coffee. And that was really the inspiration for Eon's Mushroom Coffee. So it was like, we loaded up with mushrooms. We loaded up with all these calming herbs like the L-theanine and the rhodiola and holy basil and all this kind of stuff to counter effect the negative effects of caffeine when you get too anxious or too jittery, you know, overstimulated. So it's really like it gets you to focus, gives you that energy, you're alert, but you're not jittery. And that was something that we just wanted to provide to people, you know, and not take away their coffee, because there's other, you know, mushroom products out there that is completely off coffee. But I love coffee, and a lot of Americans love coffee. It's still our best seller to date. Is
it really?
Yeah, the people love it.
I'm gonna have some when we're done recording.
People freaking love the coffee, and it's
that's your top product. That's funny, because that's the one I was like, oh, you know, I've had it a couple times, but I just put it in my drawer, and then I didn't like integrate it into my life like I did Dialed and some of your other stuff, where it's just like an everyday experience.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, but it's just because I think when, you know, people love coffee and then you try this, they're like, this is just a way better coffee experience. And you could have one cup and you're sailing all day. Like, you don't need the second cup or the third cup, and which really dehydrates you and leads to and then you're over caffeinated, and it just leads to all these other issues. So it's like, yeah, we wanted to perfect the coffee experience, you know, one cup, you're focused, you're alert, your energy, and you're calm. Like, it's really cool. Yeah.
What about the mold issue?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the mold issue. Yeah, so it's triple tested for mold. That was something we realized. That's actually usually a big factor in why people get anxiety or jitters from coffee, is they're detoxing mold. Here in the United States, they have the lowest standards for mold in coffee. So basically the rest of the world sends their coffee to the United States because they can't sell it in their countries because it has mold in it. So they sell it here to the United States.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, and I think it's about 50% of coffee here in the United States actually would test positive for mold, is what they say on Google. So yeah, it's a whole thing.
If you're a fan of this show, you likely have some knowledge of the concept of quantum energy. We've covered it a lot over the past few years. Put simply, quantum energy is the source energy that exists in literally everything. Every one of us constantly interacts with the quantum energy fields around us. What sucks, though, is that your energy field can be greatly disrupted by environmental toxicity and chaotic energy created by EMF. Well, thankfully, the innovative folks over at Lila Quantum develop products to strengthen and protect our biofield and even mitigate harmful EMF. But let's be real here. Anyone can make claims about quantum energy products because this energy is, by its very nature, invisible and therefore difficult to prove. What can be proven, though, is whether or not a quantum energy product has a positive impact on the body. To solve this, Lila Q provides a grip of randomized, placebo-controlled single and double-blind studies proving the many benefits of their products. Of the various studies listed on their site, the dark field microscopy studies are some of the most intriguing. These studies demonstrate significant protective and improvement effects of the quantum block technology on human blood following only a 10-minute exposure. To feel the effects of quantum energy yourself, here's what you do. Go to lilaq.com and use the code LUKE10 to get 10% off your first order. That's LEELAQ, lilaq.com. Let's talk about the future ideas. You were talking about kind of on-ramping with Amanita being legal and safe. And then at some point, if regulations ease up around psilocybin, maybe doing something with that. What about the variations of LSD? Is that like something that's in a realistic pipeline? Because I love to microdose LSD, but it's super illegal. So I only do it when I'm out of the United States. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Have a bunch right there. But don't tell anyone. But that's going to freak some people out unless they've really researched it. And of course, it's got to be in the proper sort of solution and concentration so that you can accurately microdose it. That's one, thank God, I've never accidentally taken too much. That would be terrifying.
Oh yeah. I've done
But 100 micrograms or 200 micrograms is not discernible. It's not like a noticeable state change, but probably once a week or something, I'll work with the LSD. But, again, it's like most people don't know where to get it and to get it safely. And also, you got to be, if it's mine's in a tincture, like alcohol tincture, you got to be very careful.
Yeah.
It's like, every time I get that bottle out, I'm just like, okay, pay attention. Cause I walk through the kitchen and just take 3 droppers full of some stuff. So when I get that out, I'm like, okay, it's like I'm holding a bomb, I'm just like, okay, 1 drop. Okay. That was 1. 2, it's kind of sketchy. Do you see a world where, whatever LSDA or some other kind of variation of the molecule that's not illegal, but still gives you that, powerful nootropic effect? Is that in the realm of possibilities for you in the future?
100%. Yeah. I'm definitely working on something basically that, a legal version of an LSD microdose. Everything that we come out with will always be a microdose, and an effective way to deliver that microdose so that the user doesn't have to go through those experiences like you and I probably have with overdosing on a tincture bottle or something like that. And that's the key, really. One of the key things about this Quixome technology is it's a precise dose. We know exactly, we put this amount of active ingredient in there and it enters the bloodstream in about a minute, precisely, quickly. So you have that state change, and then you're not like waiting 45 minutes for it to kick in because it's going through your GI and your liver has to process it. And, our livers had to process so many things over the years. So yeah, long way of saying, yes, a legal version of LSD, microdose LSD. And we also have a really cool product coming out that I think you'll appreciate, Luke, is more of I won't say the name yet, but it's more like a social dose, for people that want to let their guard down and let loose and have a little fun, maybe go dancing with their romantic companion, but don't want to drink alcohol, and we've seen this kind of thing with like the kava and the kratom, which is cool, but this will be a more healthier version of this social dose where you'll let loose, and then you'll wake up the next morning feeling refreshed and ready to seize the day. So I'm excited for that one as well. And then through the parent company, Circadian Wellness, there'll be many of these other really cool alternative medicine, think oral dissolve NAD or an oral dissolve methylene blue and these kind of stuffs that we're
cool.
Yeah, we're experimenting with that as well.
Because you have that Quixome technology. So essentially you could wrap any molecule that you want into that.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, we've tested on 175 different molecules.
Really?
Which is super exciting.
Wow.
Nicotine as well, another one. I do enjoy nicotine. And it's all about the dosage for me. It's all about the precise dose. And I really believe that this Quixome technology is like the king of liposomals. And that's what we're going to showcase. And we're going to do our best to revolutionize the supplement space. It's a gigantic space. I know that's a bold term, but it's all about the user experience. It's all about the delivery, and it's all about that validation experience. So that's what we're going to do with all these amazing, really cool supplements that are out there, but create a better user experience. So I'm super excited for all that kind of stuff. And yeah.
Awesome. For people that want to check out Eons, we'll put that in the show notes at lukestory.com/wolf, but you can also go to lukestory.com/eons and use that code Luke20 for 20% off. And, as I said, I highly recommend giving it a shot. I think if somebody's going to start with one thing, the dialed that's the move, especially if you have anxiety or sleep problems.
Yeah.
People are going to shit because it's like, I don't know, a lot of stuff doesn't work, or it might work, but you don't notice it, right?
Yeah.
You just, maybe your health improves over time. You're taking a quality supplement. And I have great people on the show all the time that make really unique products, and I wouldn't talk to them and I wouldn't use their stuff if they didn't work and there wasn't some data to support the fact that they work. But it's even more fun when you go, oh yeah, actually I just feel different now. That's fucking cool.
Yeah.
Tell me about, this is in my notes Jared put in here, and I have no idea why, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring it up. What do we need to know about ivermectin?
Oh, I love it. I love that he brought that up. Dude, that's rad. That's what I was going to share with you post podcast, but I'm happy to get into it a bit now. But that's another really exciting avenue that we're working on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, even more than working on. It's happening. It's really, really cool. You'll be very pumped about this, I think, anyway. But yeah, so we have 4 patents, international exclusive, like only people in the world with solubilized injectable ivermectin. So what does that mean? Well, ivermectin is a Nobel Peace Prize winning drug. It's already, been well established and, shown to be an amazing anti-parasitic. And now it's becoming more and more known for curing cancer, which is pretty wild to say, but, do some research and you'll see that this, cancer is most likely parasitic, and this thing can actually really help with that. Mel Gibson talked about that on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah, I heard that.
And there's a lot of people, some really interesting Telegram groups that I'd recommend. But anyway, it's this drug has been proven. It's nothing that I need to prove. But the thing with ivermectin is when you take it, when you have these parasites or illnesses and this kind of stuff, disease in the body, right now you take it and it goes through the digestive tract, right? So it destroys your gut biome. It's like a carpet bomb, and it really just goes in there and kills everything.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Like an antibiotic.
Yeah, it does. And that's the issue with ivermectin is like, yeah, you're going to kill all the parasites, but you're going to really mess up your gut biome, and your liver has to process it too, which it's pretty hard on the liver, and I'm getting more and more into liver health as I study all these supplements, and it's like, wow, it's a real thing what we put our liver through with all these supplements. So the patented injectable ivermectin makes it 2,500 times more bioavailable. So I could use a fraction of the ivermectin right into the bloodstream and destroy all the parasites, potentially even the cancer. And I see this as a, gigantic way to make impact in the world, and big opportunity for the company as well to really help a lot of people. So it's something I'm really excited about.
Interesting. And so right now, I've seen some things on X lately about some states deregulating ivermectin and making it over the counter, I think as kind of a backlash to its suppression during the pandemic, right? Where like, even if you had a prescription, your pharmacy wouldn't fill it because they wanted to kill everyone.
Yeah.
So, now people are like, oh, we're learning the truth about ivermectin, and people are fighting against the, archaic regulation. But are you foreseeing that the over-the-counter availability will come to fruition where you'll be able to just sell it directly without having to have people have a prescription?
Yeah, I do see that happening. I'm pretty sure our boy RFK even mentioned this in the last few days, where he's I'm going to make ivermectin over the counter, which is awesome. That's great. And, our company will have the rights for the best version to deliver that ivermectin, which I think is awesome. And, I'm super stoked about this opportunity. So
awesome.
Yeah,
I am too. Cause I think in the beginning of 2020 or something, I ordered a bunch of it because I had a feeling that they were going to try to stop it. And I got on some Alibaba, Indian website. I don't even know if it's real. It's super sketch, I think we just actually took the last one. Allison was feeling a little funky, so she took it for a few days. And I'm like, I literally don't even know if they're real.
Yeah.
And they're in those, those medical capsules that are blue and green, and they're super hard, some toxic ass gelatin and red number 5 or whatever. It's not a vibe.
Yeah.
I mean, you get clean ivermectin at Alive and Well if you have a prescription. You can get compound pharmacy version of it that doesn't have excipients and a weird shell around it and all that. But it's still kind of hard to come by if you feel like you need it. Yeah, that's exciting. So will your version be only injectable?
They'll also have probably the Quixome version as well. Okay. But the injectable one makes it 2,500 times more bioavailable, which is It's a lot.
And would you do it subcutaneously, or do you have to do it intramuscular?
It'd be like an insulin needle, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
it's water solubilized,
Okay.
which is really cool. Makes it very bioavailable and very effective. And we've already done all the stability testing on all this and everything. It's ready to roll out.
Wow.
So it's like, it's a big deal.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, it's
That's
really,
cool.
really cool. And I'm really excited about that, especially in I was going to talk about that in our roundtable next week, but you'll have the sneak preview about that.
Okay, epic.
Yeah.
Epic. Yeah, I mean, as a general rule, I avoid pharmaceuticals as much as possible because they're just so suspect. But,
Yeah.
sometimes, I mean, every couple of years I'll get a really bad flu or something, and I try to, cure it with my herbs and shit. And after a few days, I'm just like, all right, I give up. Like, I need the big guns, So I think something like ivermectin is, it's a good first aid kit item to have if you haven't been able to do it with lifestyle and supplementation. Sometimes you need like a bigger hit.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact is too, just walk outside and breathe the air. We're already getting pharmaceuticals like against our will, whether we want it or not. So it's like, I think sometimes our defensive strategies need to be a bit more aggressive just to keep up with all of the insults coming our way every day through our food, water, air, and EMF and everything that we're kind of, up against.
I agree. I think there's so much noise out there, and it's really staying attuned to nature's signal that will always bring you back. And sometimes people are just so far off that signal, and they got the parasites or they got the cancer and all that kind of stuff, and they deserve a real thing that can help save them.
I got a message from a mutual friend of ours yesterday who's like, dude, how do you do stool testing? What's the parasite medicine? I've been sick in bed for 3 days. I was like, well, there you go. And this is a guy that lives a really healthy lifestyle, super committed, and it's like, dude, even if you're doing everything right, there's sometimes situations in which you just get hammered.
Yeah.
And like all your natural shit is not going to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this whole like, I don't know, group of people that subscribe to, like Jack Cruz or something. Actually, Jack Cruz likes ivermectin, turns out, for certain things. But, someone like Jack's like, it's light water magnetism. You got to get in the sun and, drink your spring water and whatever, right? It's like, I've been doing all that shit for 20 years and still sometimes I get sick or I have an issue like freaking tinnitus or swollen prostate, whatever, and it's just like, even if you're super, super committed, sometimes the body just goes, F you, we're out of balance, and you got to get strategic,
Yeah.
I don't think like just eating raw liver and taking an ice bath and getting in the sun every day is going to work for everyone.
Yeah.
Because from the time we're born, and probably our parents and maybe even our grandparents have been getting poisoned 24/7.
Yeah. Heavy metals.
Yeah. So it's like the ancestral living is probably a good solution 200 years ago and would probably work for almost everyone. But now I think we've crossed a certain threshold where it's not going to be enough to bring many of us back to optimal health,
Yeah, I agree, man.
So, thank you for going there, the extra mile.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
It's going to be cool. I'm going to definitely stock up on some of that for when the shit hits the fan days.
Yeah, we got you.
All right. Last question is, who have been 3 teachers or teachings that have influenced your life and made you who you are?
Oh, wow. I love that.
It can be anything or anyone.
In the last few years, the more that I developed my relationship with the mushrooms, really developed a relationship with Yeshua, man. Jesus, JC. It's been awesome. The closer I got to the mushrooms, the closer I developed this relationship with Yeshua, and it's been awesome. And I've just been, like hungry and thirsty for anything and everything this guy says, and everything he says I resonate with. Been a huge teacher in my life. Not necessarily the whole Christian New Testament thing. I've had my own experience with that as well. Don't want to have to get into, but Yeshua as the guy, the reincarnate, or whatever you want to call him, everything this guy says just resonates with me. So him for sure. Alan Watts played a big factor in my life growing up. It's just the philosophical and really getting me to look at things in different perspectives. And I even love the fact that he was an alcoholic and he just kind of owned it. And he was just...
Oh, he was? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he died from alcoholism and he was an alcoholic. Yeah.
Wow.
But he's got so much wisdom and he just really owned the fact of like just squeezing the juice out of life, and he still had such a brilliant mind. And yeah, I don't drink alcohol anymore, but it was just the fact that he's just such a brilliant mind, and he really helped me shift my perspective. And truly the most impactful human in my life thus far was my old mentor, this guy named Spade Cooley. Super cool dude. You would love him, Luke. He was the most raddest, brilliant, spiritually enlightened, super badass dude I've ever met. Once in a lifetime human being.
I mean, he has the coolest name probably ever.
Yeah.
And if the guy who has that name is not really interesting, we got a problem.
Yeah. He totally lived up to the name and beyond. He was super rad. Literally the most impactful human being I've ever met. And he really helped me lift up my consciousness and got me looking at life in a whole new way, and really helped me step up in every aspect of life, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, consciously. And without him, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I would be in a totally different paradigm, totally different timeline. But thank you for bringing that up, because he passed away in 2017, and just to be able to be, you know, his best friend and then like his mentee for a while was like such an honor, such a gift.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Last thing I want to ask you is, how many dogs do you have right now? Last time I saw you, like, I have 15 dogs in my house. Like, you got this whole like a breeding operation that I don't think was intentional. Your dogs keep getting knocked up.
Yeah.
Like, run me through that as you sit here and hold the single dog that I'm barely able to handle.
Oh my God, I love it. Yeah. So I have right now I have 8 truffle hunters in my house. These truffle hunting dogs from Italy.
What's the breed called?
The buzzword is truffle hunter, but it's really Lagotto Romagnolo from Italy.
Okay.
Very rare breed. You know, when I got Bruce, the dad, there was 500 of this breed in North America. Like, that's insane. Like, there was 10,000 pet tigers in North America and 500 of this dog. So it was like very, very rare. And then I found another one I got a rescue from Siberia, and then they mated. And then last year I had 9 puppies when we were hanging around, and they've all been adopted, but Goldie got pregnant again. So now there's 4 more puppies at the house. And, so I have 8 dogs right now at the house.
God,
yeah, it's
dude.
wild.
That is so funny. I literally can't imagine like how you even manage that.
It's the mushrooms really help. And, something that it's helped me adopt is maximum responsibility equals maximum adventure. So it's just like the more capacity to be able to respond and not freak out and just stay calm. And then the dogs sense that calmness, and it's this really cool relationship. And I tell myself they're getting me ready for fatherhood, you know, and
I bet they are
in a little bit of a way. So,
yeah. 8 dogs is probably equivalent to 1 baby, you know, you know, just in terms of the needs that they have, you know?
Yeah.
If they can hunt truffles, I wonder if they can hunt Amanita muscaria mushrooms.
Only one way to find out.
I bet they could be trained to do it.
I think so.
Set them loose in the forest. And
that'd be rad.
When my dad used to hunt, well, he hunted every kind of freaking animal alive, but when he was really into bear hunting, he had what do you call it? What's a group? A pack of hunting dogs, some weird kind of floppy-eared hound dogs, you know? And they would put radio collars on the dogs, and then they would they'd bait the bears by putting just like these. They go up into the woods and they'd hang these gunny sacks of just guts and maggot-infested rotting flesh on the trees and just out throughout the woods. They're really stinky, so bears would be attracted to them. And then they'd give it a couple of days, and then they'd take the pack of hounds out there with radio collars, and then we'd follow behind on horseback with like this little kind of sonar-looking thing, right? I guess it was radar, whatever, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And you'd see little blips on it to tell you where the dogs were. And the dogs would be all kind of spread out, running around, trying to sniff out the bears. And then when you saw all the little dots come together and start to coalesce, then you knew if they stayed in one spot altogether that they had treed a bear. Mm-hmm. They would chase these bears up the tree, and then, you know, I thought it was really brutal, and then they'd go shoot the bear out of the tree, which I never liked that part.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about your dogs. You could take them out into like a place in Amanita season, get the radio collars on them. Little, maybe too much EMF if you love the dog, but you could get them to go locate where the burst of Amanita are.
I love that idea.
I mean, I know you're not in the business of being a forager yourself, but
no, it's something to have fun with one day for sure. I'm going to try that in my backyard and see, like, hide them in the backyard.
See if you can find them. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, I love it too. All right, well, I'm so glad we got the opportunity to sit down. We've had some great chats, over the past couple of years, and I've always wanted to record one of them, and so God damn it, we did it.
We did it. Thank you, Luke.
Thanks for coming by.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.